we're going to go ahead and cover the game of the week for every single podcast, every single show. And that is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals, where the Ravens pulled out an overtime win over those Bengals. Before we get into our takeaways for the teams, let's go ahead and bring out our MVP and our unsung hero of the day. So, Drew, for you, who's the MVP?
I think there's obvious choices here. For this one, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. He just brings something to the table this year that the Ravens have not had in previous years. And what makes Lamar in the run game so dangerous right now is that spoiler alert, I don't play in the NFL. I'm not a professional football player. But I imagine as you're entering into the mindset that you're about to make a tackle, when you're staring down Derrick Henry and you're staring down Lamar Jackson,
Drew, you disconnected yourself. And Drew hit the mute button for himself. I know there's a mute button sometimes on the top of your mic. Did you hit that? There you go.
I surely did. What the? Hey! That's freaking cool. Where was I at? What did I say? I was talking about being an NFL linebacker, right?
There you go. Yep.
I'm just saying when you gotta square up, get into your stance, and try to take Derrick Henry on versus trying to stay nimble and trying to stay quick to try to tackle Lamar. It's just those mesh points on the read action stuff. It's just very, very hard to defend, and we've seen it now at the highest of levels that it could possibly be. We've seen them blow leads to the Las Vegas Raiders, which they definitely should have lost that game. Shouldn't have lost that game. They shouldn't have lost week 1 against the Chiefs. They threw a game-winning play, and it was a quarter of an inch that cost them the game there. So this Ravens team is really on fire. Derrick Henry's been a massive part of that. And obviously Lamar went nuts also, but you got to pick two different people. So I'm going to go with Derrick Henry as my MVP.
Yeah, obviously that huge run, the 51-yard run, obviously just kind of let them win that game at the very end there. But Lamar is obviously the other MVP choice for this game. 26 of 42, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, and another 12 carries and 55 yards on the ground rushing. So Lamar all over the place. I think we're watching a Lamar Jackson that is somehow, some way, it feels like almost getting better. He played in a Greg Roman offense their first 5 years into the league. He played under Todd Monken last year, winning MVP. You can say what you want. Shouldn't have won, should have won, whatever. Doesn't really matter for this argument. But now in his second year, him gaining more controls and being more comfortable inside of this offense, it seems like he's being able to actually do what he wants here and gaining more control over his line, gaining more control over his passing concepts. So I think we're looking at a Lamar Jackson that's a much better player than last year, him getting more comfortable. And I would not put it past him to start loading another MVP season here pretty soon. So we might be already looking at it, and it's right in the midst of it, but we'll have to see in the coming week. So we've got our MVP out of the way, but who's our unsung hero? Who's a guy that is not going to get all the big name recognition, or a guy who's not going to be like, hey, he's the guy who won us the game? Absolutely. Who's your unsung hero?
I'm going to go with Justin Tucker on this one. He's gotten off to a rough start to start the season. I think he already has 3 or 4 missed field goals on the season, which is, he's had seasons where he hasn't missed 3 field goals the entire season. Obviously, he's getting a little older, but generally you would think it would be the power, not the accuracy, that would go on something like that. Right. And when it comes down to it, he made the field goal to win the game, and the Bengals didn't make the field goal to win the game. So at the end of the day, kicker, you saw it in the 49ers game. The 49ers had to go for it on 4th and 26 because they didn't trust their punter to kick a field goal. So it's not a position you think of until all of a sudden the game is on the line or you aren't able to make a field goal. So I'm going to go with Justin Tucker on this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and go with the wide receiver, Rashad Bateman. I think he did a couple of really big things in this game. When a game is this close, every single drive matters. And so doing big things like for Rashad Bateman, 2nd and 10, he extended a drive in the first half, which it was just a clutch catch, 2nd and 10, extend the entire drive, which 5 plays later, he then caught a wide open touchdown pass. So he gets rewarded with stuff like that. But so again, extending it, then catching the touchdown pass. And then He had a gain where it looked like he should have been kind of just stopped at, but with about a 4 or 5 yard game, and then he really accelerated out for that 9 yards, really jump starting their final drive. So small little things like that is what really kind of pushes these small things and lets the superstars be superstars. So Bateman gets my unsung hero of the game. Looking at the teams as a whole now, the takeaways for both teams. Let's go and start with the winning team, the Baltimore Ravens. What did you think about the entire performance? Obviously, Lamar and Derek are really easy to talk about, but what about everything else? What do we think?
Well, I mean, ultimately their defense looked terrible.
Yeah.
That's based off of the final. And you know what's kind of funny about this is me and Jacob here, we talk about things before the podcast goes live. We text about it during the week. We talk about it before we go on. We talk about it after we get off. And there's always a question he asks every week. He says to me, he says, "Hey, Drew, what do you want to do for game of the week?" He didn't even ask me this week. He didn't even give me any opinion. He sent me the script over. He said, "Game of the week, Ravens Bengals." There was no argument on this. Obviously, you love to see a game like this where the points go crazy. The defense was terrible on both sides. It kind of a tough game for the Ravens defense. There's Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and the players that they have over on that side.
It's
I think
lot of
Roquan,
talent in that secondary for it to play as poor as it did.
yeah, Roquan Smith had like 14 tackles. You know, he had like maybe 13 tackles. He had an excellent game on paper, but they were just getting, frankly, the Bengals offense was doing whatever they wanted. The Ravens offense was doing whatever they wanted, and it just there was no defense to be played in this game.
Yeah, Roquan did have 15 tackles, by the way. You were right initially.
That's just a stupid amount of tackles in today's NFL. It's just a stupid amount.
Absolutely. He got, a crucial third down stop too by just blowing up in the backfield. So Roquan does a lot. He clearly is the guy who made Patrick Queen as good as he did and got him that big contract over there in Pittsburgh. He's not playing too well right now, but Roquan, clearly, he's the player that Baltimore traded for. He's the player that you want on your team. He's the second best linebacker in this league right now, right behind Fred Warner, but it's a very close 1A, 1B. So it's incredibly close for me. When it comes to the Ravens, I think my biggest takeaways outside the Lamar Jackson stuff, I already brought it up when it comes to how good he's playing, and we might be looking at another MVP season, and he's getting more comfortable in the offense in his second year under Todd Monken. And outside of that, I think fixing the snaps has to be a priority because I'm not sure what's going on with Lamar Jackson and Tyler Lindenbaum, but their exchanges, particularly the late stages of the game, looked really bad. The biggest highlight of the day, obviously, is Lamar Jackson's, stiff arm of Sam Hubbard, then crossbody throw, a yard or a foot away from the out of bounds line over to Isaiah Likely. Right, that's the biggest highlight of the game. But there goes Drew messing with the stuff. But that all started because Lamar Jackson had a bobbled snap. So the entire thing started because of that. And then on the final drive of regulation, the Ravens had to burn a timeout because they couldn't get the snap off in time, even though Lamar Jackson was clapping his hands. And it seemed like Lamar was saying after the post-game stuff, he was saying that Lamar was trying to snap the ball while Tyler was trying to get the pass protection set. So there was a little bit of miscommunication there. And then obviously at the end of the game as well, there was a turnover that could have been costly, but it wasn't. But again, that's three separate times where we're talking about miscommunications, miscues, miss snaps, fumbling the ball away on snaps. So I think a lot of that, it's a little things in games like this that make the difference, right? I already talked about Rashad Bateman and the little things of the 2nd and 10 catch and then catching the touchdown pass and then getting an extra 4 yards. Stuff like that matters. So every individual snap in a game that you win in overtime by 3 points, that stuff matters. So if you can't fix the snaps, you might have issues way later down the line. Get it fixed now while we're about to go into week 6, not week 16. So that's my biggest takeaway for the Ravens is those snaps. What about for the Bengals? I know they lost, but there's obviously some stuff that needs to be talked about with them.
Well, the thing about the Bengals is the one thing that was impressive for them on the defensive side is I think the Ravens really came into this game. They wanted to run the ball. And if you take away Derrick Henry's one run, he averaged less than 3 yards a carry. The Bengals got BJ Hill back. The run defense looked a lot better than it has in recent weeks. Now, that's the thing with Derrick Henry. Talked about it last week on the pod is he goes 2 yards in a cloud of dirt, 2 yards in a cloud of dust, 2 yards in a cloud of dust, and then he breaks it off for 50. He did the same exact thing tonight. I think He has 14 carries at only, 2.75 yards per carry. And then he goes for 50 in one given play,
Yeah.
And so that's a sign of positive for the Bengals struggling defense. But then the negative to that is going to be at some point coming out of halftime, they just decided that they were going to put the ball in the hands of their 2-time MVP quarterback and make him just, go nuts with the passing game. And they were going to figure that out. Obviously, a lot to take away on the Bengals side in the offense. Offense looked great. Welcome back, Jamar Chase. Welcome back, T. Higgins. But again, this team, I harped on this in the offseason. I'm going to harp on it now. What would this team look like with a healthy Joe Mixon? Zach Moss has done absolutely nothing. Chase Brown has done absolutely nothing.
Chase Brown's pretty much the leader on the team at this point when it comes to the running back position. He's already almost taken over the starting role.
I mean, they're averaging, 3 yards a carry. It's just nothing dynamic. And Zach Taylor and his offense and everything he's supposed to bring to the table, obviously the offense showed out this week, especially in the passing game. But, if I picked Joey Burrow to be the MVP in the offseason, the reason why I picked him is because I thought he'd have to go for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns every week for his team to have a chance.
Yeah.
That's a direct quote. And unfortunately, this week they put up 38 and they lost the game. And that's just got to be heartbreaking for him. It's got to be heartbreaking for the team, the fan base, all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is 3 straight games of 30 plus for the Bengals, but they're taking losses against the Commanders, which the Commanders are the Commanders right now, and they're taking loss against the Ravens too as well. So the offense is doing their job. Jamar Chase is doing his job, right? We might talk about him a little bit later. Unfortunately for them as well is it's an injury concern is my biggest takeaway for them. You lose Dax Hill to injury now, right? Dax Hill plays a safety spot / nickel spot. So he kind of plays all over the place. He's that dynamic safety, plays all over the place for the Bengals defense. But you lose him, and now you're losing him for the entire year. So that's the reports that have already come out. Dax Hill's he's done. He's done for the year. And it's huge because when it comes to Cam Taylor-Britt, he's hot and cold over the last couple of weeks. He probably has like the best pick over the year when he did that crazy, like one-handed pick crazy. But that's cool. But again, he's up and down when it comes to his coverage. So having Dax Hill on that team is massive for them. Now, with him being out, it's definitely going to be hurting a little bit. Amarius Mims also needed the cart to leave the field. He came back, but leaving on the cart is not a great sign. So hopefully it's nothing super structural with him, and hopefully that he can continue to play. Trent Brown's already out, so they spend a lot on the offensive line when it comes to draft capital and actual money itself. If you have those 2 guys out, those are your 2 starting tackles, and you're going to have an issue there. So that's my biggest thing.
Joe Burrow is at a 73% completion rating. He has 1,300 passing yards. He has 12 touchdowns and 2 picks. He has been fantastic.
Yeah.
And they've won one football game.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a little disappointing, but, I think when it comes to the problems and trying to dissect on what the issue is really here, we could save that for a little bit later when we talk about if a coaching change needs to happen there in Cincinnati or if it's something else.
You telling me that defense could use Bill Belichick? Is that what you're telling me? I know we talked about that one time. We got the Bengals fans were excited. They were like, yes, please get rid of Zach. Zach Taylor's still riding high on his Super Bowl appearance that was roughly 16 years ago. So.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have to move on